Alrighty, we are back, and I want to start this conversation with another student question. So, Michelle asked this one. I love this question. She said, what is the main role of serotonin? I don't know if you've seen this, but a lot of TikTok users comment serotonin boost whenever they see something cute like puppies. And it got me questioning its purpose. So, no, I have not seen TikTok users commenting serotonin boost. I'll be honest, I'm more of a TED Talk girl than a TikTok girl, but I love this question. So let's talk about this comment, serotonin boost, that's that's popping up on pictures of puppies, kitten videos, really the only good thing that's come out of the internet. Is this comment neuroscientifically accurate? As I've mentioned before in class, nobody likes a well actually guy. However, as scientists, this is how we have to think. Now, do I encourage you to go around correcting people in the comments on a TikTok post? Absolutely not. That will not make you popular. But here in this room, can we analyze the scientific accuracy of this comment? Of course we can, and yes, we will.
Okay, look, I'm not a monster. I'm not going to discuss which brain chemical actually makes us love cute pet videos without showing you one. Here's one of my favorites. Okay, keep your eyes on the gray kitty on the left because he's about to do something super cute. All right, pop quiz. Which neurotransmitter allowed these adorable kittens to learn the fact that if they ring the bell, they can get a treat? Was it serotonin, endorphin, or dopamine? Do you have a guess? That's dopamine mediating our learning of which cues are associated with rewards in the environment. Go kittens, go dopamine. Okay, back to today's big question. Why do we love pet videos?
So the brain chemical that is flooding your brain when you watch those cat videos is on my t-shirt. This molecule is what every love song was written about. Oxytocin. So let's get to know oxytocin. Oxytocin is really special amongst our four happiness boosting chemicals because not only does it work as a neurotransmitter in the central nervous system, it has a superpower. And that is that some neurons which produce oxytocin, instead of secreting it into the synaptic gap and signaling other neurons, they secrete it directly into the blood vessels that pass through your brain. When that oxytocin gets into your blood, it's able to spread throughout the whole body and act as a hormone. So we've talked just a little bit about hormones. You may remember neurotransmitters exist to allow your nervous system to send very speedy messages. They're like sending a text. A much older system for communicating within the body exists, and that's the endocrine system, the hormonal system. And, only animals have a nervous system and only animals have neurotransmitters because we have to make those fast decisions. Plants also need to change and adapt to the environment, but they're living on a much slower time scale. And plants use hormones to send messages in the body that help them change based on whatever conditions are going on. And you have a hormonal system inside you as well that sends these slower but very powerful messages. So oxytocin is an incredible chemical because it can act as a neurotransmitter in your brain and as a hormone in your body, which is why it has really powerful and wide-ranging effects. So we've known oxytocin existed since the 1920s, but for a long time, we only focused on its role in giving birth and breastfeeding. That's where we discovered that this chemical exists. It turns out that an enormous surge of oxytocin is required by the body to start labor and to birth a baby. This huge flood of oxytocin gets contractions going, and it sort of moves the body through the phases of the labor process. And for a person who gives birth and breastfeeds, that moment of giving birth and the breastfeeding process, that'll be the biggest flood of oxytocin that they experience in their life. And that hormone allows the parent and the child to bond. So early on we studied it in mothers, but it turns out to work in fathers too. Holding your baby releases a flood of oxytocin both in you and in the baby that really promotes social bonding. Oxytocin promotes bonding in any relationship. So its primary function and what it evolved to do is to create birth and bond parents with their children. It's also responsible for all the rest of our relational bonds. So the other big time that you experience a flood of oxytocin is sex. Particularly, oxytocin is released in massive quantities by orgasm. And remember, this is the hormone that promotes social bonding. So it's behind a lot of the connection that romantic partners feel. We also feel a lot of oxytocin from any kind of cuddling, snuggling, or hugging, especially skin to skin touch. Releases this chemical that makes us feel more trusting, more generous, essentially creates love. Um, my husband and I had this really silly, kind of cute habit back when we were in college where we would give each other hugs because it felt good. But I found that the hug felt even better if we both would just pull up our shirt a little bit so the skin of our bellies could touch while we were hugging. And I called it Oxytocin DOSIN because that skin contact, I could feel the good chemicals flowing, and it increased our bond. So oxytocin is responsible for the attachment and love that you feel in both romantic and platonic relationships. It's why cuddling feels so good. Oxytocin increases feelings of trust and generosity. And this is something that we've been able to measure in laboratory experiments. Oxytocin can be directly administered through a simple nasal spray like you would use for allergies. So you can snort oxytocin and immediately it has an effect on your behavior and decision making. And we've measured this with several types of experiments. So in one classic experiment, college-aged men came into the lab and they played a game that is used in behavioral economics a lot. And it's a game where if everyone playing the game trusts each other and collaborates, they can all go home with $30. However, if one person in the game betrays everybody else, they get to take all the money home. And what we found is that when people played this economic game without oxytocin, the level of betrayal and everybody was grabbing for the 100 and they weren't able to organize and cooperate for a outcome where everyone goes home with a smaller reward. But if they inhaled oxytocin before they played the game, they were markedly more willing to cooperate and to share. We've also tested it in real world contexts, in experiments where the experimenters directly give someone money and they simply have a choice to keep all of it for themselves, or if they'd like to share it with another participant in the experiment who's a total stranger. We find that the amount of money they share is much higher if they've had oxytocin up their nose right before the experiment. So it has a measurable effect on trust and generosity. Interestingly, another part of oxytocin's superpower is that it reduces pain or sensations of pain, and it protects the brain from the effects of stress.
So, we've spent a lot of time this week studying the effects of prolonged stress, and we learned that it can have some damaging effects on the brain. But the fact is, most human beings go through stressful and traumatic events in their lives, and most of us show a deep resilience. Our brains and our minds recover from the stress. Decades of experiments show that one of the most powerful predictive factors that determine whether a particular individual will be able to recover resiliently from a stressful or traumatic experience is the presence of social support. And one reason that social support in times of stress is so protective is that oxytocin physiologically protects your brain and body from the harmful effects of ongoing cortisol exposure. That's right. Oxytocin can protect you from the negative effects of too much cortisol.
This is one reason that it's so important to seek out social support when you've gone through something awful.
All right, I'm going to leave you with just one more adorable animal neuroscience fact.
Seeing those cute, cuddly animals triggers an oxytocin release in our brains. In fact, and this is a really cool fact, when you snuggle your dog, not only is your brain releasing oxytocin, but so is your dog's brain. You're both going to love each other more after that cuddle session based on the social bonds that this magic molecule has created in both of you. I know, it's so sweet. I love that too.